This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How we doing today? It's Thursday, and you're watching or listening to the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral, BamaCentral.com. You're checking us out on the BamaCentral YouTube channel or my own YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter at Joe Gaither6. We appreciate everybody who's watching us there on their favorite social media machine or who's tuned into us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or on Amazon. We appreciate everybody who is subscribing, rating, reviewing the show on their favorite podcast platforms. We are here to talk about some Alabama football, Alabama athletics, and we're going to do exactly that. First off, we want to thank everybody who has been patiently waiting for the next episode. We've been at Alabama football camp for the last couple of days. Obviously, no Alabama football camp today for the media to participate in. The next time the media will be back in action, involved in football camp, will be Saturday. Alabama's going to have their second and final scrimmage of the 2024 fall football camp, and we will hear from head coach Kalen DeBoer about 12 o'clock on Saturday. The guys had practice today, and they have another practice tomorrow as they get ready for scrimmage Saturday, off day Sunday, Monday, and then kind of another simulated game week the following week before the guys have an actual game week against Western Kentucky the last week of the month. So the guys are, 16 days away from kicking it off, but they've got another week or so, week and change of fall camp. So let's get right into it. We're going to talk about fall camp. We're going to talk about a tradition that continued today over at the Mount Moore Athletic Facility. We're going to talk about the sporting news, naming 4 Alabama football players to its All-American team, its preseason All-American team. We'll talk about an article that Will Anderson is the focus on. Will Anderson's second season for the Houston Texans, and really about his last year right here in Tuscaloosa and his relationship with Coleman Hutzler, as Will Anderson revealed that he was experiencing a little bit of mental health issues his final year here in Tuscaloosa. Was that the year that Alabama ended up and finished, 10-2, 11-2 after winning the Sugar Bowl, beating Kansas State, but missing out on the college football playoff, losing to Tennessee and LSU. And so that was Will Anderson, very informative. In a recent interview about his last year here in Tuscaloosa. And then we're going to talk about Quay Russaw, and we'll talk about the right tackle position, basically the position and the right tackle position, as those are my two biggest question marks with 16 days until Alabama kicks it off against Western Kentucky. Before we do all that, though, we want to thank our friends and our sponsors, Derek Daniel, State Farm Insurance. You can find Derek Daniel at 4604 Highway 69 North, Northport, Alabama, about a mile off of McFarland Boulevard, just right past Tiger Rock up on the left. You can find his new office right there at 4604 Highway 69 North, Northport, Alabama, or just give him a call. Call him today at 205-758-3391 for all of your insurance needs. Derek Daniel and his team will be able to give you a very quick insurance quote on your home or auto insurance, or they're going to be able to set you up on some life insurance as well. If you need to get deeper than that, an umbrella policy, or insure things that like a boat or like an RV, or all kinds of things that you can dive into in today's world, especially renters insurance. I know that a lot of people are moving into town for the start of the fall semester, so you need to make sure you have renters insurance. Derek Daniel, State Farm Insurance. You can call them today at 205-758-3391. Tell them that the Joe Gaither Show sent you, and you can and he and his team will make sure you are properly covered for all of your insurance needs. 205-758-3391. That's Derek Daniel, State Farm Insurance. Like a good neighbor, Derek Daniel is there. So let's talk, I got a couple little small logistical storylines, and then we can talk about what we've seen from fall camp and what we will experience, what we expect for the next week and a half. You got The guys finished practice number 12 today, I believe. Yesterday was 11. Today was 12. Oh, no, yesterday was 12. Today was 13. So you're a day behind there, Joe. I've been kind of a little bit of experiencing paralysis by analysis, having an overload of information as this year's fall camp has gone a bit differently than the last 17 fall camps, or the last 4 for me, specifically to Nick Saban. But we've heard a lot of different things, so I've kind of, that's partly what's kept me away. Been a little bit paralyzed with all the information that we have been received, kind of sifting through what's important, what's not. Let's talk about some logistical things. Let's get some things out of the way. Last week, we talked about changes to Hey Coach, and last night you heard the first Hey Coach of the year. No Kalen DeBoer, no Alabama football player on Hey Coach last night. You will hear Kalen DeBoer and the Alabama football players. They'll have one player every week up there with Kalen DeBoer in 2 weeks time. But last week we talked about Hey Coach and the changes to Wednesday night, changes to the sideline crew. Obviously, you've got Tyler Watts and Chris Stewart going to be calling the games, but no Christian Miller. It was announced last week that it was going to be Damian Harris. Comes out yesterday, day before, Chris Stewart announces that there has been a little bit of a change. No Damian Harris. Damian Harris will not be the sideline reporter for Crimson Tide Sports Network this fall. That role is still to be determined. So just want to go back and readdress something we talked about last week. Damian Harris got another opportunity and is going to be pursuing that instead. Obviously, it sounds like there was some conflicts with the opportunity that he will be taking, some conflicts with Crimson Tide Sports Network, and so we will see what direction they go in as far as sideline reporter. Who would you like to see Crimson Tide Sports Network go out and add to the radio broadcast? I know a lot of people still consume the game by turning the TV down and listening to Crimson Tide Sports Network. This year, they're going to be hearing Chris Stewart full time. I know Chris Stewart was a big part of the COVID season. And it obviously called a lot of the away games. Last year, Eli Gold calling the home games, and Eli Gold retiring this year. So now it's opened up the full-time role for Chris Stewart, and Chris is going to do a great job. Tyler Watt's going to be a fine second man, fine color man. But now they have to go find a new sideline reporter. It'll be interesting. Maybe they go back to Christian Miller, who did a very good job for Crimson Tide Sports Network, at least in my opinion. Obviously, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I thought that Christian did a very good job. And so it will be interesting to me to see what direction Crimson Tide Sports Network goes. But the only real update for now is that Damian Harris, previously announced as the sideline reporter, will not be Alabama sideline reporter this year. Okay, keep on going. Sporting news. This will be another quick one. Sporting news announced today preseason All-Americans, and they are one of the, I think it's 5 different publications that officially announces All-Americans. So this one means a bit more than the SEC preseason All-SEC picks, because really anybody the SEC credentials for SEC Media Days is allowed to vote in that preseason poll. And look, I think that everybody who made their way out to Dallas takes themselves seriously enough. But as evidenced by the Vanderbilt Commodores and the South Carolina Gamecocks getting votes to be the SEC preseason pick, it's not always taken as seriously. But the Sporting News, they are going to take their preseason polls and their preseason All-American picks seriously. And 4 Alabama players were named today as preseason All-Americans. 2 of them, interesting enough, Parker Brailsford and Graham Nicholson, named first-team preseason All-American. And that makes me excited, and obviously should make you excited for Alabama hitting the transfer portal well and hitting home runs in the transfer portal. And Graham Nicholson, last year's Lou Groza Award winner, and Parker Brailsford. We'll see what Parker Brailsford adds to this year's offensive line. But I found it interesting that it was Parker Brailsford being named to the first team, Sporting News first team preseason All-American over Tyler Booker. Tyler Booker was named to the second team. Tyler Booker and Malachi Moore were named Sporting News preseason All-American second team preseason All-American, obviously at guard on offense and at safety on defense. And just find that just a little interesting for Tyler Booker to be named second team and Brailsford to be named the first team. Obviously, I think that Brailsford has a lot of respect, and I think a lot of people have a very high opinion of Parker Brailsford. But I think the general consensus outside the Alabama program and inside the Alabama program is Tyler Booker is your most valuable offensive lineman and is your leader along the offensive line. Now, you've got a lot of interesting quotes about Parker Brailsford and what he has meant to the offensive line this year because of basically he's the man in the offensive line room that knows the checks, that knows, what the Kalen DeBoer offensive system, what the goals are. And so I think Parker Brailsford is being leaned on a lot. And I do think that he will end up having a very good season. I think that Alabama faithful are going to be very happy with what they get in Parker Brailsford. I know that there was a time on the program, especially around spring practice and just after spring practice, when you had James Brockermeyer transferring out of Alabama, where I was concerned what the heck that Alabama was going to end up doing at the center position because there were still rumblings about, is Parker Brailsford dealing with a personal issue or not? But Kalen DeBoer shut all that down basically every single time he was asked about it. He was asked about it at the Region Tradition, and he said, Parker Brailsford's going to be in camp. He was asked about it down at the Alabama event down at Mullet Sauce down there at Orange Beach. And, he's going to be there for summer workouts. He's going to be all in. And boom, Parker Brailsford, summer workouts start at the end of May, and he's right there. He's in on summer 1 and summer 2, and he's been with the Crimson Tide basically all in since summer got started. And we've seen him at every single media availability that we've been able to go to. We've gone to 7 now. We'll get one more before the end of fall camp, and we appreciate our time being out there. We were out there on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. You guys can check out all of our video at BamaCentral's YouTube channel. Just type in BamaCentral into the search bar on YouTube. That's where you can find all of my old shows, but you can find all of those media availabilities that we are having yesterday with offensive players. I talked to Justice Haynes, and we had Nick Sheridan as well. You'll see videos from Chris Kapilovich. You'll see videos from Emmanuel Henderson as well from yesterday's time, and Jaden Roberts as well was with us. So you can check out all those videos on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. But really, okay, where was it? Parker Brailsford, right? We've seen him every single time that we've been able to be at practice. And he's been operating right there as center, as the first team center. Just a little surprise to me to have him be named the first team center over Tyler Booker because I think that Tyler Booker is widely regarded as a first-round draft pick this coming up spring and as Alabama's leader in the offensive line room. So just logistical things to get out of the way right there. Damien Harris is no longer going to be a part of the Alabama radio team, the radio broadcast on Crimson Tide Sports Network, and we will wait to hear what Damien Harris ends up doing with his football season. Obviously, he will make that announcement in his own time, and we will wait to see what Crimson Tide Sports Network ends up doing to fill that sideline reporter role. I wouldn't be surprised if they turn right back to Christian Miller. Obviously, they gave Damien Harris an opportunity. I wouldn't be surprised if they went back to Christian Miller and said, hey, you did a great job last year. Let's ride it up and let's roll it back for another season. Regardless, whenever that decision does get made, we will follow that right here at BamaCentral.com. And we did want to bring you the 4 preseason All-Americans. Obviously, it means nothing. Means absolutely nothing, but 4 preseason All-Americans for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Something else that means absolutely nothing, but did come out this week, and we have not talked about it on the show because I have been a little bit MIA, and I apologize to everybody for being a little bit MIA. Just been a little paralyzed by all the information coming in right here, but AP poll came out on the 12th. So that was Monday, Tuesday. Came out. Oh, was that Monday? Excuse me, Monday midday. The preseason AP poll came out and looked very, very similar to the college football coaches poll, at least the top 5. And really, what are you paying attention to outside of the Alabama ranking? So 1 through 5 is Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, and Alabama. You had 4 or 5 teams in the let's see, 1, 2, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss is 4, Missouri is 5. You got 5 SEC teams in the top 12. So it'll be interesting to see if all 5 teams end up making it into the college football playoff. But just like the college football coaches poll that we ranted and raved about last week, the AP poll doesn't matter, particularly the preseason AP poll. What are we doing here? You're going to see you go through the top 10, and we just listed off the top 5. Look, it's Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss. You keep on going. Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, and Florida State rounds out your top 10. Somebody in that top 10 is going to finish the year unranked, and you're going to have 1 or 2 unranked teams that finish in the top 10. So you look at this preseason AP poll, and it tells you absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter at all. So look, what does it do for college football? It gives yahoos like me something to talk about for about 5 minutes. It gives the college football the addicts out there, those who are fiending for college football news and for information, it gives them something to talk about, but it means absolutely nothing. It's not a metric for the selectors who are going to be selecting the college football playoff committee. Now, it will come into a little factor when you get into that last spot, that last automatic qualifying spot, the highest ranked group of 5 member. That will play a significant factor, but will it play a factor in anything else? No, it won't. The college football poll will still be the main metric to follow. The AP poll just putting it out there per tradition. Per tradition, the AP poll puts it out there for you guys to argue about in your group chats amongst your friends. Oh, man, Georgia ranked number 1. Are they overrated? Oh, man, Ohio State, Oregon. Let's all get excited about that regular season game. And we will be excited about that regular season game. Absolutely. And we're going to be excited for when Georgia goes out to number 4, Texas, right? We're going to be excited when Georgia and Ole Miss play against one another, right? That's your top 6 teams. And you got games against every single one of them. We're going to be excited when Missouri, number 11 Missouri, comes to Tuscaloosa. And it's exciting to put these numbers with some of these dates. But does it really matter? Especially right here, August 15th, or 3 days ago, August 12th, the Monday when it came out? No, it doesn't matter at all. But gives you guys something to talk about. It gives me something to talk about for 4 or 5 minutes. We will see in 16 days when the real football starts happening. And so all this to say, I'm glad the college football playoff poll, they've been doing this for years, where they haven't put out a playoff poll until early November or late October. And I think that's the way you ought to be doing it. You got to be seeing 3-4 games of football before we determine who the number 1 team is. Yeah. Is Georgia very, very talented on paper? Absolutely. Carson Beck might be the most talented quarterback in the country. Great. They're loaded. Absolutely. Is Ohio State absolutely loaded on paper? Absolutely. Yes, they are. Alabama, still very, very loaded on paper. But you never know. Changes happen throughout college football. The transfer portal is rampant. The college football coaching carousel is rampant. Is Dillon Gabriel going to go up to Oregon and find himself to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country? Is he going to have the Ducks a top 5 team? Or is he going to struggle up there in Eugene? You don't know. You got to wait 3, 4, 5 weeks, I think, before you start ranking these teams. And look, especially you look at the first week. The first week, obviously Alabama's playing Western Kentucky. So let's see if I can pull up real quickly ESPN this first week schedule, because I promise you're not going to get a great picture about who's who. First week number 1, top 25. Okay, yeah. Florida State playing a conference game against Georgia Tech. Great. Do we think we're going to find out about NC State when they play Western Carolina, or Missouri hosting Murray State? We keep on going. Utah, top 12 team, or is going to be playing Southern Utah in that first week. Oklahoma, you're playing Temple. Wow. All right, Georgia and Clemson, we're going to find something out about Georgia right there. You're going to find out something about Clemson right there. You absolutely will. And Penn State, you're not playing a joke. You're playing West Virginia right off the bat. But Tennessee, top 15 team, Tennessee, are we going to find anything out about Tennessee as they're hosting UTC? No. Or Ohio State hosting Akron, first week line out right there at 58.5 points. You taking the Zips plus 58.5 points. You're not going to learn anything about these programs until they play real competition. Now, Miami, you get a good feel for Miami and Florida, right? Miami, 2.5-point favorite, week number 1 against the Florida Gators. Great first week. You're going to find something out about those teams. It's going to take us some time, is my point, to find out about who these teams are. Alabama, you're going to figure out who they are in the first week when they steamroll over Western Kentucky? No, you're going to wait a week. You're going to hold out a week, and you're going to wait until they go up and play Wisconsin. You're going to kind of hold out some judgment and wait. You're not going to make a judgment call as Alabama takes on South Florida. No, you're going to wait until that 5th week when Alabama hosts the Georgia Bulldogs, when they face some real competition. Ole Miss plays Furman right here the first week. Does that going to tell us anything about Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin? Absolutely not. Oregon is going to beat Idaho by 1.5 million points. It doesn't matter. And so all that to say, the AP poll that came out on Monday, absolutely meaningless. Let's just wait and see what these teams look like after a couple of weeks. Let them play some real competitive games. We don't care about Ohio State playing Akron. We want to see Alabama play Wisconsin. We want to see Georgia and Clemson. See some of these games. We want to see these games against quality competition. And so let's wait 3 or 4 weeks into the season before we actually rank some of these teams. All right, so we talked about Damian Harris. We talked about the AP poll. We talked about Sporting News and their All-Americans. Let's talk about something that is continuing this week, a tradition that is continuing. I know a lot of people are very, very worried about what traditions, what long-standing university traditions will continue under Kalen DeBoer, what Nick Saban traditions will continue under Kalen DeBoer, what will go away, how will things change? Well, one thing that did not change this year during fall camp happened today over at the Malmore Athletic Facility. I need to text my man Brady because I know Brady playing the baritone was over there, part of it with the $1 Million Band. Today, after practice, the $1 Million Band comes over to the practice facility and plays Yay Alabama. You can check it out on Alabama social media machines, Alabama FTBL on the Twitter machine, and you can watch basically Jalen Milroe and all the team leaders put the freshmen through the motions, teach them the words. Yay, Alabama, Crimson Tide, every Bama man's behind you, hit your stride. Go teach the Bulldogs. They teach them the words every year to the fight song. And look, I know that some people might think that the fight song is overblown, and I'm not getting involved in that level. I know if you guys watch me do my Bears podcast once a week, Believe in Monsters, you see me every week finish the show with our Bears fight song. I love it. I love fight song in sports. I love pageantry in sports, and I love the fact that it's not overlooked. It's not overlooked, right? And look, the players may have learned the words today, and they may forget them tomorrow. That's not going to be the majority of the team. The majority of the team will remember it. We have seen countless videos in the locker room after a win of the players singing the fight song. And I think that will continue. And, of course, that doesn't go for the whole roster. Some of the guys may not remember the words today, right? They may go, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. His mouth, hooey gooey, watermelon, right? But I think it's a lot of fun. And I think it's very I don't know. I think it's very college football. I think it's very pageantry. I think it's very, down home to learn the fight song. Obviously, I think back to my high school days where I knew we knew the fight song on Macaulay was put to the Wisconsin tune on Macaulay, pa 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 da 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 da. So it's fun. I think. It's a part of sports. It's a part of the emotion that sports elicits. And so the guys today over at the Malmore Athletic Facility learning the words to Yay Alabama. They all get the sheet out. You see Jahad Campbell. You see Ryan Williams is in the video that they put out, and they are learning the words Yay Alabama, Crimson Tide, every Bama man's behind you, hit your stride. And you guys all know the words, obviously, but I just think it's a lot of fun that the tradition is passed on to the new freshmen. This is something that Coach Saban always did. They always had a day during fall camp when the band or a part of the band, the pep band or a part of the band comes over. They play it over and over and over until Coach Saban is satisfied that everybody knows the words. And takes it 2-3 different renditions. And I think it's a lot of fun that Kalen DeBoer has continued that tradition. Does it mean that the guys are going to play 5% harder now because they know the fights? No, doesn't mean anything like that. But it is just fun. And as far as fun goes, we like fun. We like that. That's why we like sports. It puts smiles on people's faces and makes people feel good. And the fight song makes people feel good. And so today, the Alabama football team learning the fight song on top of a new offense and a new defense. So the guys learning the words. They will presumably continue to sing the fight song after each and every win. You heard Jalen Milroe on his video basically saying, okay, this is something we need to learn. He said, okay, this is about family. Forget about me. I love you. There was a lot of fun things in those videos that they put out earlier in the day, Alabama football on the social media machines, to watch that little, 2.5 minutes or so of the guys learning Yay Alabama. All right, let's talk about, you want to talk about AJ DeBansa or Will Anderson? Let's knock out one more little thing. AJ DeBansa. Then we'll hit a little commercial break. We'll do Will Anderson and we'll do Quay Russaw and the right tackle. That'll be kind of our wrap it up here. AJ DeBansa is the number one player in the class of 2026, right? Class of 2025, excuse me. He's an upcoming senior, rising senior out of Utah Prep in Hurricane, Utah. 6'9", 200-pound small forward. Number one player, according to 24/7 Sports, this is basketball. Number one player in the upcoming class in basketball. And our man AJ DeBansa has set an official visit. He has set all of his official visits, and he's going to be coming to Alabama for the Georgia game, for the Georgia football game. You've got 7 different schools. Let's see if I can find his whole list of schools here. Let's see, AJ DeBansa. As I have 1,000,001 different tabs open. DYBANTSA. AJ DeBansa has announced, Baylor, Alabama, Kansas State, Kansas, BYU, and North Carolina as his final 6 schools, and has official visits to basically all 6 schools. Number one overall player, let's see, Joe Tipton. Also has Auburn in this as a 7th. So we'll see if the Auburn Tigers can stay competitive. But just a lot of fun. Adam Finkelson from 24/7 Sports says he's a 6'9" jumbo wing with a wingspan exceeding 7 feet, an emerging 200-pound plus frame, and an advanced understanding of how to score from his spots. AJ DeBansa is the best prospect in high school basketball. DeBansa possesses a lethal pull-up game with a high release and smooth ball rotation. He's been a celebrated prospect since before even entering high school, yet he has avoided the pitfalls of early stardom by consistently improving his game at each level. He was the leading scorer in the 2023 Peach Jam as an underclassman and shows flashes of untapped potential on defense thanks to his size and movement skills. The bottom line is this: DeBansa controls his own future. If he continues on his current path, then there's no one in high school basketball with more potential than him. That's from Adam Finkelson, the director of scouting of 24/7 Sports. 6'9", 6'9", even longer, even taller. 6'9", 200 pounds, small forward, going to Utah Prep in Hurricane, Utah. But he's out of Brockton, MA is Massachusetts, Brockton, Massachusetts. So we'll watch for AJ Dubbanza. But once again, Alabama in on a high-level basketball prospect. In on a basketball prospect that can be one and done, and on a basketball prospect that can continue to elevate Alabama's basketball brand. Just very, very exciting. We will look forward to seeing how AJ Dubbanza enjoys his time in Tuscaloosa for that weekend. What is that, September 28th, I think it is. September 28th, that week number 5 matchup against the Georgia Bulldogs is when he will be making his official visit to Tuscaloosa. All right, before we wrap this show up, let's tell you about our friends, Purple Turtle Roofing. Purple Turtle Roofing is the most reliable residential roof replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi. Whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. Purple Turtle Roofing is the leading expert in local residential roofing solutions, specializing in providing unparalleled service and quality craftsmanship for all your roof replacement needs. Call Dustin Foldy and his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for a free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 to schedule your appointment, and one of their qualified employees will come check out your roof for free and make sure that you're prepared for any and all of life's storms. You can visit them online today at roofturtle.com. Let's continue. We got about 2 more topics before we round this show out. You're always invited to comment on the show at Joe Gaither 6 on your favorite social media machine, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You can leave me a comment, question, query, or complaint. I have 3 more little topics to get into, and we're going to start with Will Anderson. Will Anderson gets drafted, number 3 overall by the Houston Texans last spring, and becomes the Defensive Rookie of the Year. Had a great year for the Texans. Texans win the AFC South. They go from, I think they were in worst place. I think they were in last place. They go from last in the division to first in the division. And obviously, C.J. Stroud got a lot of the attention as the rookie quarterback. But Will Anderson got a ton of attention as well. I think I still have this article in my likes just because I wanted to keep up with it. Let me see if I can't find it real quick. Maybe I got rid of it. Will Anderson. Because I want to give this fellow proper credit. Will Anderson. Well, this makes a compelling show if I can't find the article that I'm referencing. Yeah. Perfect. That's what I wanted right there. This is from Tyler Dune. Yeah, from Tyler Dune. And this is golongtd.com. Tyler Dune basically writes about writes about Will Anderson's journey from high school player to Alabama to dominating the NFL in his first year. Basically how he has changed the Texans culture, how he has been just as much a big pivotal piece as C.J. Stroud. And obviously C.J. Stroud, you're going to get all the attention as the quarterback, and they've added a lot around him. It added a lot around the entire team this past offseason. They got Joe Mixon. They traded for Stephon Diggs. They're going all in. They're basically seeing their window as wide open. The Houston Texans as wide open, and I think that's great. Look, you guys know I'm a Chicago Bears fan, but I have no illusions about the Bears winning a Super Bowl. So if Houston wins it, great, awesome. As long as Green Bay, Detroit, or Minnesota don't win, I'm actually perfectly happy. If Houston ends up winning the Super Bowl because Will Anderson has a great year, and look, there are a lot of Alabama players on the Houston Texans. You have Christian Harris, you have Henry To'oTo'o, and you have John Mechie just right off the top of my head. But Will Anderson, a very interesting part of this piece, describes and details his last year at Alabama. Obviously, we all remember his first year at Alabama, burst onto the scene, was incredibly productive, and everybody was like, who is this guy? He was unblockable. Freshman season, 52 tackles, 10.5 for a loss, 7 sacks. Great year. And then second year, absolutely exploded. 17 and a half sacks, unguardable, unblockable off the edge. 34 and a half tackles for a loss. 102 total tackles as a sophomore. So what happens? Because you look at his junior production, and yes, he did get drafted highly, number 3 overall. It's about as high as you were going to get drafted, right? Behind Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. You're the first player drafted that wasn't a quarterback. But those numbers, your junior year, Will Anderson only had 51 tackles, 17 tackles for a loss, and regressed to 10 sacks on the season. Now, he did have an interception that he took back for a touchdown. I believe that was against Utah State, but one of the early games of that season. So, okay, you got to the end zone for the first time that year, but not as good of a season rushing the passer, clearly. Yeah, you took a step back in your tackles for a loss. You took a step back in your sacks. And look, a 10-sack season, that's still a really strong year. I would take that any day that I can. But after having 17 and a half the year earlier, it was very clear that he was dealing with things. Will Anderson didn't really dive into it that much in his article with Go Long, with Tyler Dune, but he did kind of hint at a less than cohesive relationship with Alabama outside linebackers coach Coleman Hitchler, who's now Mississippi State's defensive coordinator. Coleman Hitchler, we all remember last year, Alabama going into the cheetah package. This would be 2 years ago, going into the cheetah package several different times. And you got Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, and Chris Braswell out there at the same time. And you got, one defensive tackle, whoever it would have been at the time. And okay, great. It worked some. But you had Will Anderson pointing inside. You had Will Anderson dropping into coverage. You moved him all around several different times. And it was very clear that Will Anderson wasn't as comfortable his junior year. And Will detailed how it put him into an anxious depression in that junior season. That would have been, 2022. Alabama goes to the Sugar Bowl and beats Kansas State. And that's Will Anderson and Bryce Young ride off into the sunset. And great, good for them. But really, it's just upsetting to see maybe Alabama's best defensive talent, at least in the last 20 years. I know Derek Thomas, you don't want to put any disrespect on his name, but at least in the Nick Saban era, right? What other defenders come close to Will Anderson? Maybe it's Minkah Fitzpatrick. Maybe it's Reuben Foster. I mean, I'm talking about the Nick Saban era. Maybe it's Landon Collins. Maybe it's Eddie Jackson. But no, I don't think any of those guys stand up to Will Anderson. No, I don't think so. I mean, it might be in his others receiving votes, but it's Will Anderson, and then it's everybody else. You got Quentin Williams for a year, Jonathan Allen for 2 years. Really, Jonathan Allen might be your number 2, right up there with Minkah Fitzpatrick. So you might have those 3 as your top 3: Will Anderson, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Jonathan Allen. But you wasted his last year, his what would have been his best year in college. And it makes me think about the coaching staff as a whole. The coaching staff as a whole, right? Everybody's been talking about this year's coaching staff, this year's Alabama coaching staff, and you brought in Christian Robinson to coach the Wolf position, which would be the Will Anderson position. But you brought in coaches from left, right, and center. A lot of these guys coached with Kalen DeBoer at different stops, and obviously you retain Freddie Roach and you retain Robert Gillespie. But the coaching staff as a whole, we heard Joel Klatt, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, somewhere in that time, middle of the summer, Joel Klatt goes out there and says that Alabama's coaching staff as a whole, from top to bottom, might be better than any coaching staff under Nick Saban. And people basically went out and said, oh, there's no way, you're clickbaiting. Oh, Joel Klatt, you're saying things for clicks. And look, I don't want to disrespect Nick Saban by any means at all. This isn't about Nick Saban couldn't do it. Nick Saban, the game passed him by. But Nick Saban referenced it. in his conversation, what was it, with Reese Davis right after he retired, basically saying every single time he had to go hire an assistant coach, they said, Coach, how long are you going to be there? You're going to be in Tuscaloosa for 3 or 5 years. You're going to be in Tuscaloosa. Are you going to be my boss for more than 2 seasons? Basically was the ask. And Coach Saban, you can debate how honest you think he is, but I think he's very honest. Looked those guys in the eye and said, I can't promise you that. We're taking this on a year-by-year basis. And because of that, I think that in the last few years of the Nick Saban run, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, right? At least after the 2020 season. I mean, the 2020 year is arguably the best year top to bottom of any year in the Nick Saban era. You go undefeated in an SEC-only season and basically go unchallenged. You beat the brakes off of everybody. But after that, the staff, you missed out on your top-tier candidates. You missed out on, Steve Sarkisian moves on and goes on to take the Texas job, and good for him. Great. But you replace you replace Steve Sarkisian with Tommy Rees. You replace Steve Sarkisian, with guys who, I'm sorry, but I am so much more excited about this year's offense than any offense that was not named Lane Kiffin or Steve Sarkisian's offense. I think this year's offense is going to be in that category of Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian's kind of elite style Alabama offenses over the last 2 decades. Point being, Will Anderson didn't get along with Coleman Hutzler, and it could be deeper than that. Will doesn't really get into the details too much, and I think that speaks to Will's maturity. Basically says, yeah, there was an issue there. I had a hard year mentally. You can read the article if you'd like to. Search up Will Anderson, Tyler Dunn. The title is All Game Long. Will Anderson Jr., the Terminator, is the Houston Texans Foundation. You can read it for free at golongtd.com. But the point is, you had some disagreements, and really, okay, disagreements are going to happen. They're going to happen. They're going to happen. They've been happening right there in the Malamore facility right now. And look, I usually am a pro player, but I'm especially a pro player when that player happens to be one of the most talented players that has ever played at the University of Alabama in Will Anderson. Look, you can talk about other players being better, and great. I'm not here for the argument. I'm here for let's make sure everybody's accounted for, right? I don't care about who's actually number one. Will Anderson's in the category of best Alabama defensive player ever, best Alabama player ever. And you ended up making a player who went on to be Defensive Rookie of the Year and went on to basically prove himself as the defensive foundation of an up-and-coming NFL team. You made him uncomfortable. You put him in uncomfortable positions on the field, which resulted in uncomfortable positions off the field as well, which resulted in self-doubt, which resulted in, not playing at 100%. And look, this just goes into a lot of the things we have said already this offseason about this current coaching staff putting the players in positions to succeed. No, it's not going to be Nick Saban's defense anymore, but it's going to be simplified. No, it's not going to be the Alabama offense under Nick Saban, but it's going to put the players in positions to succeed. Obviously, you're going to be looking to get the ball down the field and have a vertical passing offense. But Kalen DeBoer is going to put these guys, these 11 offensive players, obviously 15 to 20 or so are going to be significant contributors. But this offensive unit, he's going to put them in the best positions to succeed. And I think that is something that is an underrated change, is an undervalued change to this Coach Saban retirement. Look, you never want to disparage Coach Saban, and I hope that if you're watching this or listening to this, you're not taking this as disparaging of Coach Saban. Obviously, the greatest college football coach of my lifetime. But you start to fall into some, traps. Some traps creep up. Some problems creep up. And Coach Saban, I think, some of his problems was hiring. Obviously, hiring assistants that were wanting to stay and hiring quality assistants. And I'm not sitting here saying that Coleman Hutzler isn't a quality football coach, but I think that you should side on the side of the generational athlete, on the side of the generational talent. You should recognize a generational talent, and you should say, how can I put this generational talent in a position to succeed? And then iron out some of the deficiencies that obviously every single player has. So Will Anderson, very insightful article from Tyler Dunn. Go along. It writes all game long. Will Anderson Jr., the Terminator, is the Houston Texans Foundation. Basically writes kind of his details about his relationship with Sal Sunseri, and obviously that huge sophomore season came under the guidance of Sal Sunseri. They changed to Coleman Hutzler that next year, and he saw a great reduction in his production. I didn't mean to I didn't mean to rhyme right there, but and he details that really he and Coleman Hutzler did not see eye to eye. Let's get out of here by talking about two things that are actually happening at fall camp right now. And really, they're the two positions that I have the biggest concern for. I'm not concerned about who's going to play corner. I think you have enough talent in that room right now that whoever ends up winning the job, whether it's Deshaun Jones and Damani Jackson or whether it's Damani Jackson and Xavier Brown, I think Damani's pretty much locked in right there. But whoever that second is, I've got enough confidence in their talent. Alabama's going to be able to get by, right? And Alabama's going to be able to get by at safety with Malachi Moore and Keon Sabb. It's going to be able to get by at its Husky position with Devontae Smith, or maybe it's Red Morgan. They're going to be able to get by in the secondary. My biggest questions are the same two questions we've been playing the last couple of weeks. Now, I have moved past my concern for inside linebacker. Obviously, Jihad Campbell and Deontay Lawson are bad mother bleepers. They are bad dudes. They are some headhunters, right? Not anybody that I want to be trifling with. But my biggest concern, we've gone over it a bunch of different times, was third inside linebacker. You're hearing a lot of great things about Justin Jefferson. I didn't think that he had a great 8A game, but I've read a lot of other opinions that says that he did have a good 8A game. My opinion was that it was kind of meh. What we have heard this fall is that Justin Jefferson put on some poundage, put on some muscle, put on some strength, and he's maintained his speed. His speed was always his greatest asset. And now you've heard defensive coaches, Kane Womack in particular, call him a de facto starter. Now, will he start? Probably not, but a de facto starter. So, boom. Alabama has three quality inside linebackers. Boom. Joe Spears are quelled. My biggest issues right now, are Wolf production and right tackle problem mitigation, right? Who's going to play Wolf? Everybody has Quandarius Robinson written in and Keanu Coate written as his second, but I think the name that's not getting written about enough is Quay Russaw. Look, Quandarius Robinson is going to get the first crack at it. Obviously, his experience gives him the first crack at it, and he's probably going to have to end up doing something wrong. He's probably going to end up having to cost Alabama, you're going to have to miss some assignments in a game. He's probably going to have to end up grading poorly to open the door for other players. But I think Keanu Coate's going to get some run at Wolf just based on snap usage, right? And making sure everybody's fresh. I think Keanu Coate's going to get some rotational usage. But I think Quay Russaw is going to end up being the most impactful Wolf on the roster right now. You also got Yanzi Pierre and Ja'Shawn Ross. I don't know that either of those guys are going to be impacting this Alabama defense too much this year. But my big concern is what happens at the Wolf position. You graduated Chris Braswell. You drafted Dallas Turner. We just spent 10 minutes talking about Will Anderson. You've had great production at outside linebacker over the last 3 years. If Quandarius Robinson is not that next great edge rusher, outside linebacker, what ends up happening next? How quickly do you go to Keanu Coate and say, okay, can you create some pressure, create some havoc along the edge? How quickly do you start going down the Rolodex of players in the Wolf room? I think that that's one question. That's question A. But question B gets answered by the time you get to Quay Russaw, I think that the spinning of the Rolodex stops. I think Quay Russo, once he gets his shot at the Wolf position, will assert himself as the starter at the Wolf. Will he start week number 1 in 16 days, against Western Kentucky? No, I don't think he will. I think Quandarius Robinson's going to be starting against Western Kentucky. But will Quay Russo be starting against the Georgia Bulldogs? I think there's a serious chance that he will be. Because you want some pop, you want some impact, you want to be able to feel some real, you want some real production out of the Wolf position. Of course, you need to set the edge. Of course, you need to set the edge and allow the safety to fill the alley behind you, or allow the inside linebacker to scrape behind you. Of course, you got to be able to take on the block and set the edge. That's not very sexy, but it is a part of your job. And I think Quandarius Robinson will be able to do that part of his job fairly well. Set the edge and maintain his gap. My biggest issue and concern is, will he be able to do the sexy part? Will he be able to get into the backfield and wreak havoc? Will he be able to put pressure on a quarterback? I have concerns about that. I have some serious concerns about that. And so because of that, I think that Quay Russo is going to end up getting an opportunity in the first half of the year. And I think that once he does get his opportunity, I predict that he will take advantage of his opportunity and become Alabama's full-time Wolf with Quandarius Robinson and Keanu Coate coming in as rotational pieces. The other issue for Alabama right now in camp is the right tackle position. It seems pretty settled that Caden Proctor is taking that left tackle position, as we all assumed. I'm not going to sit here and write that on BamaCentral website right now, because we all assumed the second that Caden Proctor announced that he would be returning to the capstone by way of the transfer portal, we all assumed he was going to end up starting at left tackle. It was just a matter of when. And of course, he goes to the first 6 days of fall camp, working with the twos. And now you've got him firmly working with the ones, and great. It's basically assumed he's your starting left tackle. Thank you. That's where we all were 4 months ago, right? 3.5, 4 months ago. It's the right tackle position. What ends up happening at right tackle? And this question started the day that Caden Proctor announced he was returning to Alabama, right? He's returning to Alabama. You're in the middle of spring practice, I believe, at that point, or you hadn't started. You hadn't quite started, because I remember thinking to myself, well, you got to go ahead and start getting Elijah Pritchett reps at right tackle. You got to start getting them reps right now. They didn't do that. And now at right tackle, you've got Elijah Pritchett and Wilkin Formby basically in competition. And look, competition's not bad. No, it's not bad at all. I don't want to frame this as a problem for Alabama, but it is something for Alabama to figure out in the next 16 days. Who's going to be your starting right tackle? Are you going to play Wilkin Formby, who, according to Chris Kapilovich yesterday in the Mount Moore Athletic Facility, basically said that between the ears, that young man's got it. He knows the calls, he knows the checks, he knows the protections, he knows his assignments. It was just a little concern, it seemed like, from a physicality standpoint. Is he going to be fast enough? Is a rusher going to get around him using speed? Is a rusher going to get underneath him and get him off his spot, get him off balance because of a strength issue? Now, I don't know if those are level 10 problems, if the actual execution of the blocking is a level 10 problem for Wilkin Formby, or if it's a level 3 issue. Or level 2, level 5, what are we doing with here? Is he getting ragdolled every single snap? Surely not, or he wouldn't be out there. I'm sure that this is an every now and then problem. But on the flip side, Elijah Pritchett is having a similar but different issue. Allegedly, Elijah Pritchett, according to Kapilovich yesterday in the Mount Moore facility, Kapilovich compliments Elijah Pritchett's physicality and compliments his physical ability. Says, when we can get him at 100%, he plays well. We like what he does. It's getting him to 100%, getting his motor to 100% at a consistent basis, and also getting his mind, his mental, getting his recognition, getting his awareness level up to an adequate level, getting him to understand all the calls, all the checks, all the assignments at right tackle. And so you've got two different right tackles who are dealing with two very different issues, who are both seeming like quality enough players. Like, okay, well, you can get by with this. You can get by with it. But each of them have some deficiencies to work on over the next 16 days. It's going to be very interesting to see who ends up starting at right tackle and what deficiency Alabama decides they can end up living with. Is it going to be, okay, Elijah Pritchett, we're just going to decide that you're the starting right tackle, and we're going to hope that on game day, your adrenaline level takes you to 100% every single snap? And we will let Jaden Roberts and Parker Brailsford help you get the right calls. Or is it going to be okay, we'll conform you. You know what you're doing. You know the assignments. Now your adrenaline level on game day, we're going to assume that takes you to that, okay, now you're playing at 105%. Takes you past your, usual capabilities in practice. It's going to be very interesting to see who Alabama ends up going with. I think if I were Kalen DeBoer right now, I'd play Wilkin Formby. I want to know the guy who knows his assignment. And, okay, if he knows his assignment and is given 100%, that's what you can count. That's what you can count on. That's what you can bet on that. You can make a bet on you can't make a bet on a guy who – you can't make a bet on a guy who's given 100% every other snap, every third snap, 3 out of 5 snaps. You can't bet on that. You can't bet on a guy who knows his assignment 3 out of 5 snaps. Because you're going to run into some critical downs, some critical situations where, oh man, this is the down where, the guy either just doesn't give it his all or doesn't know the assignment, and boom, you've got somebody coming off the right side and they're crushing Jalen Milroe and they're blowing you up on 3rd and 7, and you're punting and all your defense is getting back on the field and things aren't looking good for your offense. No, I think I'd end up starting with what we know right now. With what we know right now, I think Wilkin Formby is going to be the guy that you end up seeing at right tackle for Alabama. But still, 16 days until Alabama kicks off against Western Kentucky. So still plenty of time to change things, plenty of time for new problems to come up, for new problems to creep up for the Crimson Tide. Alabama is going to practice again tomorrow on Friday, and they're going to have their second and final scrimmage on Saturday. They're going to have one more week of fall camp, and then it's into game week for Western Kentucky. So we are going to be here before you know it, and it's going to be a lot of fun covering it right here on the Joe Gaither Show. We appreciate everybody who's hung in there with us this week. We apologize for being a little paralyzed with everything, overwhelmed. There was a little scheduling issues, just kind of some things thrown on my plate that I did not deal with very well. And so I apologize to you, the viewer and the listener, because I left you high and dry, and that is what I don't want to be doing. So I apologize about that. As we get out of here for the day, I want to tell you one more time about my friend Derek Daniel at State Farm. Everybody needs insurance. Everybody hates insurance. Let's just be honest about it. Derek's no stranger. He knows it's not a fun game to deal with, but he deals with it so that you don't have to. Call Derek Daniel at 205-758-3391. He will give you a quick home, life, or auto insurance quote. Their auto insurance rates are as competitive as they've ever been, as competitive as they've been with anyone in the market. They can get you properly covered. You want to make sure that you have the proper coverage for your vehicle. Do you need just liability coverage? Do you need comprehensive and collision coverage as well? Derek's going to be able to help you figure that out. If Derek's not available, they've got great team members, Red, Reese, and Victoria. They'll be able to walk you through your policies as well, because he's got them properly trained and properly educated. They don't want to be taking your money. They want you to be happy with your service. They want you to be happy with your coverage. They want you to fully understand your coverage and understand why each line item is important. So call them at 205-758-3391. The best way to do it with Derek Daniel and State Farm is to bundle your coverages together. So if you've got your home insurance with them, you might as well get your auto insurance with them and go ahead and get your life insurance with them as well. We appreciate Derek Daniel for sponsoring the program. We appreciate everybody who's tuned in and watched us on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. You watch us on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. We're almost to 5,000 subscribers on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. So we appreciate everybody who has hit that subscribe button on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. We'll be back for another episode of the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.